right, we just witnessed one of the wildest, most chaotic, and most season-defining Saturdays of the entire year. Comebacks, collapses, upsets, playoff chaos, and a whole lot of teams either proving that they belong or proving that they don't. But before we get into it, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. It means a lot to me in this channel. But let's go ahead and start with a game that might go down as the biggest momentum swing of the entire season, Texas A&M versus South Carolina. And honestly, I can think of somebody who may be able to explain this game better than I can. So take it away.
South Carolina is gone.
Like it's already gone, or it's gonna be gone?
Forever.
Forever. The whole state of South Carolina is just gone.
Yes.
In the time span of the 4 seconds I didn't see you, you removed South Carolina, and now you're in my plants.
So, Texas A&M, South Carolina. This game was the definition of a tale of two halves. South Carolina goes into halftime up 30-3, and genuinely, it looked like Cocktober just arrived a month late, and absolutely nothing was going right for Texas A&M. Marcel Reed was off of his game, forcing throws, making bad reads, turning the ball over, and honestly, a lot of that was because South Carolina was living in the backfield. They were blowing up run plays, disrupting every single throw, and completely eliminating Reed's legs. Meanwhile, Lenore Sellers was cooking, dude. South Carolina ran the ball with ease. They threw the ball with ease. The A&M's defense looked completely clueless. It felt like this thing was over. Then came halftime. And I don't even want to know what kind of ritual, seance, or deal with the devil that A&M made in that locker room, because the team that came out was completely different. Texas A&M scored 28 unanswered points in the second half. Marcel Reed suddenly went from turnover machine to absolutely surgical precision, throwing lasers, hitting tight windows, looking fully in command and comfortable. The defense locked in. They didn't let South Carolina even sniff scoring range in the second half. And offensively, A&M didn't punt a single time after half. Everything just started clicking. Momentum flipped, and South Carolina either celebrated too early or they just ran out of juice here, because either way, A&M stormed all the way back for the largest comeback in school history, and probably the largest comeback that I can remember ever seeing in college football. Talk about being tested, man. It does not get much tougher than being down 27 and only 2 quarters left to play. But they responded like a championship caliber team, and then some. November is the longest month of the season, and it's where teams either survive or collapse. And A&M, they survived. And now they're basically a virtual lock for the college football playoffs. Moving on to Oklahoma versus Alabama, and I am happy to be wrong about this one. I'm honestly happy anytime Alabama loses. I thought the Crimson Tide would get revenge on the Sooners here at home, but instead, Alabama loses again. A lot of people penciled in a loss for Oklahoma here and basically wrote them out of the playoffs, but now they are set up perfectly to make a run. And Alabama, they went from lock to the playoffs to 1 loss away from elimination 2 weeks before the Iron Bowl. So how did this happen? Well, defense and special teams. 20 of Oklahoma's 23 points came directly from either a forced turnover or a special teams play. And the other 3 points was a 50-plus yard field goal, which you can also definitely credit to special teams leverage. The point is, Oklahoma never had to drive the length of the field to score. Alabama gifted them scoring opportunities, and John Mateer and Tate Sandell took full advantage. Offensively, Oklahoma didn't really have to do anything wild. If you look at the stat sheet, Alabama actually dominated, double the first downs, double the total yards, double the passing yards, fewer penalties, and more time of possession. But when you look at the box score, what it doesn't tell you is that there were 3 red zone turnovers, there were 4 sacks, and a missed field goal on Alabama's side, and the amount of pressure as well that Oklahoma put on Ty Simpson to throw him completely out of his game, out of rhythm. That all played a factor into why Alabama lost this game. We talked about in the last video, Oklahoma might be the best defense Alabama has faced all season. I think that's very true from what we saw. Plus, we already knew that Alabama was not going to be able to run the ball. They haven't really been able to all season, and they were facing one of the best run defenses in the country. That was not going to make it easy at all. So they lead on the passing game just like they have all year, and this time it was not enough. Not with all the mistakes and all the pressure and with the field position disadvantages that Oklahoma created. So down goes the Crimson Tide. And it really does feel like Oklahoma just has their number at this point. And just like Oklahoma seems to have Alabama's number, Georgia clearly has Texas's. Texas is now 0-3 against the Dawgs since joining the SEC, and this one left zero doubt. Most people, including myself, expected this to be the game where Texas's luck finally ran out. They've been skating by all year, so having close games against teams they probably should have lost to. Their offenses looked really rough all season, and this always felt like the matchup where those issues would get exposed because while Georgia has played with fire as well, it's felt a little bit differently, at least to me. Texas has, won some close games, but it felt more like luck, while Georgia's wins felt more like close grit, perseverance, and growth moments. Maybe that's just because I'm biased towards Georgia, but to me, the Dawgs have been trending upwards, getting better every single week, and Texas has just looked pretty vulnerable. And in this game, like I said, they absolutely got exposed. Now, the score looked close in the third quarter after Gunnar threw that rare interception that gifted Texas a short field position, but the game never really felt that close. Georgia was in control from start to finish, and as soon as Georgia needed to step on the gas, they boat raced Texas, especially in that fourth quarter. And that onside kick from Kirby Smart, dude, that was so ballsy, but it worked out. Nobody saw that coming, and it ended up being the dagger that ended the game here. Now let's talk about the matchups. In my last video, I said Georgia would get more backfield penetration than we've seen them get all season long because of how vulnerable Texas's O-line has been, and that's exactly what happened. Sacks, TFLs, constant pressure. Georgia lived in the backfield. And we already talked about how Texas is not able to run the ball. Georgia has one of the best run defenses in the country, so Texas was not able to run the ball in this game. Texas finished with just 23 rushing yards, and if you add Texas's rushing yards of the last three matchups they've played against Georgia, you'd get 83 total yards, which is still less than Georgia had in this game alone, which is just kind of insane. If that doesn't tell you who the more physical team is, nothing will. Texas's elite defense held up as long as it possibly could, but eventually Georgia's talent and balance took over. Gunnar Stockton carved up the secondary. Georgia ran the ball consistently despite how good Texas is up front. And Georgia was by far the more disciplined team. One penalty the entire night compared to Texas's usual sack of mistakes. This Georgia team is starting to look like a real national title contender. The secondary is still concerned, and Mike Bobo is still Mike Bobo. But overall, they look pretty dang good, and I like where this team is heading. And as for Texas, they should not be in playoff contention. They are a deeply flawed team, and they got embarrassed in Sanford Stadium. Moving on to USC versus Iowa, and USC once again wins a game against a physical opponent. They're really starting to flip the script this season. First Michigan, then Nebraska, now Iowa. The question all year was, could USC actually win these tough, grinded-out bruiser matchups? And they're starting to prove that they actually can. For a while, it looked like Iowa was going to run away with this game. They were up 21-10 at halftime, and it really felt like classic Iowa football: control the pace, punish with your physicality, and squeeze the life out of the other team. But USC shut them out in the second half, and they did it while looking balanced, composed, and physical at the line of scrimmage. And there's still room for growth, for sure, but USC fans have to be encouraged by what they're seeing. And as for weather, yes, it was wet, but not nearly as ugly as I thought it was going to be. And honestly, if we got the same conditions we got against Oregon, I do think Iowa probably wins this game. But, that's a scenario that I at least predicted, made my prediction under. So I'll take my L. But for Iowa, it's another heartbreaker. They had a real chance to win this one late, but an interception off a deflection crushed their momentum. And then the toe out of bounds, just barely out of bounds at the end of the fourth quarter, really ended everything. Great effort, but not enough. And now this sets up a massive matchup next week between USC and Oregon. A must-win for USC if they want a chance at the playoffs. I'm really excited to break that down in my next video. But let's move on to our very last game, Pitt versus Notre Dame. And Notre Dame just checked off their final real resume builder left on their schedule. And at this point, it feels like they're basically a lock for the playoffs. And yes, I'll admit it, I'm a little bit salty. I never love seeing Notre Dame get the nod over teams that have tougher paths, but credit where it's due. They put together a really strong case this weekend against Pitt. Now, you can argue that Pitt was never as good as their record suggested, since they play in the weakest Power 4 conference in the country, and that's totally fair. But holding that offense under 20 points is still impressive. Now, Notre Dame, they controlled the matchup from start to finish. Jeremiah Love looks exactly like the star everyone thought he would be coming into the season, and the Irish look like a team that's really ready to make some noise in December and January. So that's another absolutely insane week of college football in the books. Playoff paths got clear for some teams, completely shattered for others, and a few proved they are way tougher than anyone ever gave them credit for. November is where pretenders get exposed and contenders start showing off who they really are. And after this week, the picture is continuing to take shape. We've got some massive matchups coming up, so buckle up. This last stretch of the season is about to get wild. Anyways, I'll see you guys next video. Peace.